All right, sorry about that. Screencast-O-Matic will only go 15 minutes at a shot, so a few parts are a little bit broken up, but that'll be all right. Um, I wanted to move on from phrenology, so the study of the skull. That was quite early. It moved into intelligence testing. So criminals were considered innately below normal. So IQ testing is very controversial. IQ is still viewed as a very strong predictor of delinquency and of crime. It is both inherited, there are inherited parts to IQ, as well as acquired through what we learn, right? What we're learning as we go through life and that sort of stuff. So there's a nature element to it as well as a nurture element to it. Um, Quite often people from psychological positive school look to, when they're looking at intelligence and crime, they look at the consequences of school failure. So a lower IQ in an individual leads to frustration, humiliation, and alienation from the school and the pro-social influences that are possible within schools, right? This then uh, has a person seek out or choose to associate with a more negative peer group, and tends to be a more delinquent peer group. Um, so intelligence is uh, a really difficult one because testing somebody on their IQ, as I mentioned earlier, is very tied to um, uh, sort of a European, a Eurocentric basis of what intelligence is. It doesn't accommodate for other cultural knowledge, cultural norms, that sort of thing. And so it really misses some very important intelligence that just simply isn't measured because it's measured through a standard that is very culturally specific. And that's been the problem with IQ testing from the psychological positivist school of thought. Body structure and physiology. This was another one that it was psychological positivism, but it really has tied in with biology a fair bit. Where somebody who's more muscular, strong, is seen as more likely to offend. More aggressive personality is somebody who's has a stronger build, a bigger body structure. All right, and there's been all sorts of people trying to tie people's physiology, their shape, to um, to to crime, to all sorts of social situations. But again, we're not looking at crime directly. We're looking at more aggression, right? So it's looking at these continuum of traits, and aggression tends to be one of those traits that's measured, and that's where these theories are extrapolated from to discuss crime. So eugenics is another area I wanted to touch on briefly, and eugenics is something that was done quite dramatically, and with horrible results. It still happens today in a lot of cases. Eugenics is basically exterminating people that are seen as being lower in intelligence, right? So it's been done through forced sterilization. So we've had things like sterilization of sex offenders, um, assuming there's some sort of psychological positivist idea that if one person's a sex offender, then their offspring are going to be like that. So there's been sterilization of sex offenders. There's been sterilization of people that were seen as vagabonds. Um, there's been sterilization of people that are imprisoned. And some of this stuff, to a certain extent, still happens today. We're going to watch a video here in a minute that's going to discuss some of that and how it's been done. Alberta was the last province to stop eugenics, and it was done on intelligence basis. If somebody didn't reach a norm of intelligence, whatever that threshold was, I think it was around 70 IQ points, which is fairly low, but it made the assumption that um, we're going to that the assumption was a very racist one, um, and a very uh, horrible one. It just made an assumption that if this person's IQ is low, then they should not reproduce, or if this person had a mental health difficulty, then they should not reproduce so that we can stop this from happening. And really, a lot of the people that were behind the eugenics movement associated mental health directly to crime. They associated a lot of the ills to society, or seemingly ills to society, as people who were seen as being inferior, genetically inferior, and therefore we've had cases of overt um, just um, destruction of people under this idea of eugenics. So what happened in World War II with the Holocaust, that was eugenics was the driving force. Psychological positivism was the driving force behind that thought process at that time. And it wasn't until 1972, I'm pretty sure it's 1972, right around there. I might be off by a year. Alberta was the last place to stop sterilization of people with low IQs. Okay, so this didn't happen a long time ago in our history, and the results of that have been uh, were devastating. There's people still alive today. Um, Lilani Mir there's a movie around her and her life, and how this occurred to her while she was still a teenager. And Yeah, it's an ugly part of not just the history of Canada, but the history of a lot of the world, that we're really bought into the idea of psychological positivism, and really tying science to trying to better the human race. It came from a very racist ideology, though, that only certain types of knowledge and certain types of intelligence were valued. So I'm going to stop it there, and we're going to watch just a short video um, regarding this.